Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 8 Part 53 based on novel. So let's start. Lin Dong's body felt an extremely pure and mysterious energy surging over from all directions the moment his body entered the supreme purity celestial pond. Finally, this energy steadily tunneled into his body. While being nourished by this energy, Lin Dong could faintly feel a slightly piercing pain that originated from inside his body. However, this piercing pain was not the same pain that resulted from injuries. Instead, a vaguely comfortable sensation was spreading in addition to this pain. It felt just like when a wound was being healed. This is such powerful healing properties. Shock and amazement surfaced on Lin Dong's face, before swiftly turning into pleasant surprise. This was because he had discovered that the source of the piercing pain was from some of the injuries left within his body. Lin Dong had fought countless life and death battles over the years. Quite a number of them were bloody battles, hence, his body was naturally plagued with various internal injuries. Although some of the serious injuries could be swiftly healed by relying on his strong physical body, there would ultimately be some bruises that remained hidden. These slight injuries were normally difficult to be sensed by even Lin Dong himself. Although they were minor wounds which did not hinder Lin Dong much, the accumulation of such wounds was frightening. Should they be accumulated until a certain point, it would no longer be a trivial matter once they blew up. It was due to this that Lin Dong felt joyfully surprised as he felt those hidden injuries within his body being healed by the supreme purity celestial pond's energy. It seemed that he had unknowingly resolved a potential problem that might give him a headache in the future. Lin Dong quietly sighed in relief. A thread of devouring power subsequently spread outwards, as the speed at which the energy surged into his body rose greatly. Lin Dong no longer paid any attention to it after seeing this. Yuan power surged within his eyes, as he began to search for Ling Qingzhu's figure within the pond. Where has she gone? Although Lin Dong was currently underwater, he was still able to see everything clearly. However, what puzzled him was that he could not find Ling Qingzhu anywhere in the pond. Could she have gone below? Lin Dong's gaze swept around. He looked at the somewhat dark pond bottom and frowned. After some hesitation, his toes pushed off, and his body rapidly swam to the bottom of the pond while being wrapped by green light. The supreme purity celestial pond was not massive. However, its depth was unusually extensive. Moreover, there were quite a number of meandering water tunnels within it, hence, its terrain was exceptionally complicated. Lin Dong's body shuttled through these water tunnels. His mental energy was fully activated at this moment. He followed the most minute responses and adjusted his direction. This search continued for a whole 10 minutes. However, Lin Dong still failed to accomplish anything. This fact caused Lin Dong to knit his brows tightly. The situation was a little unusual. Oh. While Lin Dong was feeling faintly puzzled in his heart, his expression suddenly changed as his spreading mental energy finally detected something. His gaze hurriedly looked at the bottom left position. After which, he rushed out. His body drew past the water flow, emitting splashing sounds. Lin Dong was extremely fast. A couple of minutes later, he had already reached the spot where his mental energy had sensed some unusual activity. After which, he saw a cluster of emerald green light blossoming at the bottom of the pond. A suet jade-like naked body was curled up within the light, her fine black hair scattered behind her. From a distance, she appeared like a mermaid in a slumber. This lovely figure was Ling Qingzhu, who had entered the supreme purity celestial pond earlier. Finally found her. Lin Dong undoubtedly heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Ling Qingzhu. Quickly after, his pupils suddenly shrunk. His eyes suddenly looked at the area below Ling Qingzhu. Rays of jade green light were shooting out from that spot, and coincidentally connected to the light cluster around Ling Qingzhu's body. There is indeed something strange going on. Lin Dong's expression suddenly became a lot more grim after seeing this scene. He suddenly waved his sleeve, and a force swept towards the bottom of the pond, directly blowing away the mud. After the mud scattered, it was possible to see a sinisterly white skeleton lying at the bottom of the pond. Fluorescent light spread over the skeleton. Those jade-green threads of light shot out from the skeleton, before connecting to Ling Qingzhu's body. Light continuously flashed on the connected light threads. There seemed to be something continuously surging out from Ling Qingzhu's body, before finally being poured into the sinisterly white skeleton. Lin Dong stared intently at the white skeleton. Those black eyes of the latter seemed to flicker with a jade-green light. This skeleton was actually absorbing the life force within Ling Qingzhu's body. Lin Dong's pupils abruptly shrunk to the size of pinholes. His hand turned into blade as it furiously hacked downwards. Sharp palm force whistled out and ruthlessly chopped at the jade-green light threads. However, the palm force, which could slice a mountain, did not have any effect when it landed on the light threads. Instead, it was repelled. Lin Dong's expression changed when he saw this. His body moved, and he swam towards the light threads. Devouring power surged on his palm, before he grabbed the light threads. White fog immediately erupted from the light threads when Lin Dong's hand grabbed them. Devouring power seeped in, and directly devoured all of the energy that was within this connection. Crack! The jade-green light threads finally dimmed rapidly at this moment. In the end, it cracked and crumbled. The light around Ling Qingzhu's body also quickly disappeared when the light threads crumbled. However, a tightly shut eye still did not show any signs of awakening. Lin Dong moved. He reached out and grabbed Ling Qingzhu's naked body. The icy cold sensation that met his touch caused his heart to quiver violently. His eyes initially swept over her in an uncontrollable manner. After which, he violently inhaled a breath, and took out a large robe to cover the body that caused all sorts of desires to rise within his body. Although the robe was wet the moment it was taken out and ended up adhering to Ling Qingzhu's body, outlining her enchanting curves. It was at least much better compared to the completely naked body from earlier. Lin Dong did not have the time to think things through after hugging that enchanting and delicate figure. He merely looked at the skeleton in the mud with cautious eyes. At this moment, the skeleton was actually trembling in a strange manner. Soon after, it unsteadily sat in the mud. There was an extremely weak light flickering within its eyes. A chill surged through Lin Dong's heart the moment he saw this scene. From the ancient aura that came seeping out of this skeleton, it seemed like this thing was definitely something from ancient times. Even though Lin Dong had seen all kinds of ancient objects over the years, this was the first time that he saw such activity by a skeleton-like object. This fellow. Just what kind of powerful desires did he have? He was still able to stir like this after thousands of years. Lin Dong's eyes were grave as he watched the trembling skeleton. He was just about to bring Ling Qingzhu and leave this strange place when he saw the skeleton suddenly stiffen. After which, its bones began to crumble. In the end, it emitted a bang and turned into dust that quickly dissipated. Lin Dong could vaguely hear a voice that was filled with an endless unwillingness being quietly transmitted underwater when this skeleton turned into dust. Lin Dong was stunned as he watched this scene. Soon after, his eyes flickered. It seemed like this skeleton had finally reached its limit after enduring until this moment. That voice from earlier should have caused it to completely disappear from this world. While Lin Dong was quietly sighing in relief, a jade-green light suddenly flashed and appeared at the spot where the skeleton had disappeared. With a swoosh sound, it rushed past the pond bottom and galloped towards Lin Dong. Lin Dong cautiously watched the jade-green light that rushed over. After which, he discovered that this seemed to be an extremely mysterious spirit light emblem. He could sense an extremely majestic ripple from within this light emblem. This is a spirit emblem. Lin Dong's pupils shrunk as he muttered. The so-called spirit emblem was the entire essence of an extremely powerful practitioner that had been left behind. It could be considered an extremely rare and precious mystical treasure. Su Ruo had attained her current achievements because of the spirit emblem she had obtained from the ancient realm back then. Moreover, that was merely beginning. Even Lin Dong's heart felt boiling hot when faced with such a treasure. However, he was about to move and grab it, but the jade-green light dodged him. Finally, it directly entered Ling Qingzhu's body in front of his speechless eyes. Looks like it has no affinity with me. Lin Dong mocked himself, and shook his head. Such great opportunities always brushed past him. Lin Dong ceased having other thoughts after mocking himself in this manner. He was just about to hug Ling Qingzhu and leave when he felt the person in his embrace move a little. After which, he lowered his head and saw a pair of clear opened eyes on a blazing red beautiful face. Two bright pairs of eyes met each other at the bottom of the pond. Yet, the both of them were strangely silent. Two bright pairs of eyes met each other in the serene depths of the pond. The strange and quiet atmosphere continued between the two. Lin Dong felt a little embarrassed in his heart. Although a preposterous deed had happened between the two of them, it had occurred to Ju Ling Qingzhu falling into a trap. Now, however, the two of them were clearly completely awake. Moreover, Lin Dong could feel the soft body in his embrace. There was also a scalding heat being emitted at this moment. The wet thin clothes did not hide much. The heat that was transmitted across the thin fabric also caused Lin Dong's breathing to suddenly become a little heavier. It was likely that any ordinary man would not be able to maintain complete calmness in such a situation. Release me. Ling Qingzhu had also detected the slight change in Lin Dong. Fear immediately flashed in the depths of her eyes. She struggled a little before finally uttering those words. The current Ling Qingzhu had clearly lost her usual cool and calm self in this unusual situation. At the same time, she had also forgotten just what kind of fatal allure it was to a man, when a usually pure and noble goddess revealed such an extremely rare timidness. It was at that drastic transformation, when the brilliance of a goddess was peeled away, and turned into a delicate woman. Bang! Hence, after she spoke, she did not see Lin Dong release her. Instead, a lustful flame surged within the latter's black eyes. Next, her eyes suddenly widened as Lin Dong's face rapidly expanded in her eyes. That arm which hugged her body completely fixed her in place. In the end, she sensed Lin Dong's hot mouth landing on her lips in an overbearing and fearless manner. The scalding heat from her lips caused Ling Qingzhu's body to instantly stiffen. Very quickly, however, she regained her wits. Her delicate hand became just like the paws of a cat, as they viciously scratched Lin Dong's back. Immediately, many bloody marks appeared, while her body struggled violently. However, Lin Dong completely ignored her violent struggling. Both of his arms were like iron pliers, which firmly hugged the lovely figure in his embrace. That great strength appeared as though he was attempting to crush her into his body. Bang bang bang. Ling Qingzhu's jade-like hands resisted in front of her, and a palm landed on Lin Dong's chest. The resulting deep and muffled sound caused one to be scared witless. Clearly, the former was both extremely embarrassed and furious at this moment. Ling Qingzhu was extremely powerful. When this palm landed, Lin Dong was still somewhat unable to endure despite his powerful physical body. His body immediately leaned forward, and caused the two bodies to press tightly on each other. Soon after, his lips withdrew as he viciously glared at the woman in his embrace. He spoke with a heavy breath, "I will take you here and now if you move again. You dare." Ling Qingzhu's face was filled with embarrassment and fury, as she clenched her teeth and rebuked. Although she spoke in such a manner, her struggles had clearly weakened. It seemed that she was indeed a little afraid of Lin Dong turning crazy this moment. Lin Dong grinned. He felt the intense pain that was transmitted from his chest and back. However, his heart had a joy that could not be hidden. It had been 5 years. That noble and arrogant woman from back then, whom he could only look up to and not touch, was once again being ruthlessly taken advantage of by him today. That somewhat perverse joy practically had an even greater satisfaction compared to when he killed Lin Langqian back then. "Lin Dong, you are asking to die?" While Lin Dong's heart was filled with pleasure, the voice of the woman in his embrace suddenly turned cold. Immediately, he lowered his head only to see that the embarrassment and fury on Ling Qingzhu's face start to vanish. In their place was her usual and familiar coldness. After all, this woman's willpower was quite extraordinary. Even at this moment, she was still able to swiftly suppress the disturbance in her heart and regain her normal state. Lin Dong's expression also altered slightly when he saw this. Even though he had managed to cause Ling Qingzhu to be unable to resist him, this was only because the latter had panicked. Given the latter's strength, if she was to really calm down, Lin Dong would definitely not be able to do much. Bang! Lin Dong's prediction was correct. After Ling Qingzhu calmed down, an unusually mighty fluctuation suddenly spread from her body. A great force unfurled, and directly jolted Lin Dong's arm away. The force was so great, that even he was forced to take a couple of steps back. Ling Qingzhu had also taken this opportunity to escape Lin Dong's control, as her figure drifted backwards. The face with a soul-stirring beauty, however, was covered with frost at this moment. Clearly, Lin Dong's act of taking advantage of her earlier had greatly infuriated her. Lin Dong quickly became clear-headed when he saw Ling Qingzhu's expression. He immediately cried out inwardly, "This is bad." While Lin Dong felt an ominous feeling in his heart, to his front, Ling Qingzhu extended her jade-like hand. Promptly, she clenched her hand gently, as a blue longsword appeared in a flash. A formidable aura abruptly unfurled. "Run!" Lin Dong's scalp skin turned numb upon seeing this. It seemed like this woman had gone mad. Without any hesitation, he immediately turned around and rushed out of the pond. He did not doubt that the Ling Qingzhu at this moment would not give any face or take their relationship into account when she attacked. Lin Dong's body had barely moved, when two unusually sharp sword glows suddenly shot at him from behind. In the end, they skimmed past his body, and directly cut two enormous water channels in the pond. "Lin Dong, I will kill you." Ling Qingzhu's voice, which contained embarrassment and fury amidst the coldness, was transmitted from behind. Subsequently, Lin Dong felt sharp sword glows rushing over from all directions. Lin Dong was naturally not foolish enough to stay behind and suffer those sword attacks. His green dragon wings extended. With a swoosh, he rushed forth. Countless formidable sword glows were like swimming fish, as they chased after him at lightning speed from behind. The supreme purity celestial pond in the valley was completely quiet. However, this silence did not last for long, before an enormous whirlpool formed within the pond. In the next moment, a green figure burst out from it. Next, sword glows shot out in all directions. The surrounding mountain walls were instantly blasted apart. Many huge sword scars had appeared on them. Lin Dong glanced at the mess around him after rushing out from the pond, and the corners of his mouth twitched involuntarily. It turns out that Ling Qingzhu was actually this frightening when she flipped out. Bang! The surface of the supreme purity celestial pond once again exploded. Water splashed over the sky as a beautiful figure appeared. Subsequently, a completely wet black robe flew out. A white dress shook and swiftly covered her jade-like body. As the water fell, a great beauty in a white dress was already standing in the sky. She descended like an azure waterfall, however, her pretty face was still covered with frost. Ling Qingzhu held a longsword in her hand. Her face was frosty as she watched Lin Dong, who was forcing a smile. Without further ado, the longsword danced, and another formidable sword glow shot out, shooting at the fatal spots on Lin Dong's body. Upon seeing this, Lin Dong hurriedly pulled back. He pushed his speed to the limit and continuously dodged Ling Qingzhu's attacks. "I went down to rescue you. Do you need to be so ferocious?" Lin Dong hurriedly said as he dodged. "If I had not gone down, your life would have been sucked away by that thing. I was worried about you." Ling Qingzhu gnashed her pearly white teeth and coldly stated, "What has this got to do with your disrespectful acts?" Lin Dong was speechless. A desire had indeed rose within himself earlier, and it was due to this that he was unable to resist doing those things. Even with his thick-skinned nature, he was unable to find any excuses. Humph! Ling Qingzhu snorted coldly when she saw this. Her sword slashed again, and another formidable sword glow, which was a couple of dozen feet in size, furiously cut at Lin Dong. Lin Dong gazed at the sword glow that had once again came slashing at him. He sighed somewhat helplessly and actually ceased having any intentions of dodging it. From the looks of it, he seemed to be wanting to suffer her attack. The sword glow arrived in a flash. However, Ling Qingzhu eventually clenched her teeth just as it was about to land on Lin Dong's body. Her delicate jade-like finger thrust forward, and the sword glow slightly shifted its direction. After which, it narrowly passed Lin Dong's body and viciously hacked downwards, directly cutting a huge scar on the ground. Lin Dong sighed in relief when the sword glow missed. After which, he helplessly spoke to an icy-faced Ling Qingshu, "You done venting your anger?" Bang bang. A loud rumbling sound was suddenly transmitted from a short distance away soon after Lin Dong's voice faded. After which, the three-headed monster snake, which had been diverted away earlier, once again hissed as it wildly charged towards the valley. Its eyes immediately filled with a violent murderous intent the moment it saw the two individuals in the valley. Lin Dong watched this monster snake's return, and was just about to attack, but a figure had already flashed past him. Lin Dong was stunned as he watched countless sharp sword glows rushing out from Ling Qingshu's sword, seemingly covering the sky as they bared onto the monster snake from all directions. The three-headed monster snake emitted a sharp and miserable screech when faced with this merciless attack of Ling Qingshu. Many bloody scars rapidly appeared on its enormous body. Soon after, the monster snake, which had a strength comparable to Lei Qian, was cut into pieces. In the air, Lin Dong stared blankly at this scene. He gazed upon the incomparably miserable fate of the monster snake, before once again looking at Ling Qingshu's face, as the iciness slowly started to withdraw from it. For a time, his scalp felt somewhat numb. This woman was likely using her actions to warn him. This was the outcome when she became furious. In the valley, the enormous monster snake fell to the ground with a bang. Fresh blood flowed, dyeing the ground red as a bloody scent stealthily spread. Ling Qingshu's face was cool and indifferent as she landed from the air. After which, she arrived at the supreme purity celestial pond. A jade-like hand brushed apart the water, and slowly washed the bloody longsword. Lin Dong involuntarily rubbed his nose while he watched this scene. It seemed that Ling Qingshu was very embarrassed and furious this time. However, he could understand why. If it was someone else, Lin Dong was certain that his fate would be similar to that of the monster snake. It was likely that the only man in this world who could continue to challenge her baseline in such a manner was Lin Dong. The messy and unclear relationship between the two had clearly made it impossible for them to view each other as ordinary people. This was also the reason why Ling Qingshu was tolerating of Lin Dong's various excessive actions. Water flowed down the long sword, and landed into the pond, creating many ripples. Ling Qingshu lowered her head and gazed at the face that was so beautiful that it could cause the downfall of nations reflected within the ripples. Her pearly white teeth involuntarily bit her lips. It seemed there were still some remnant traces of the warmth from earlier on her lips. That fellow seemed to constantly shatter the calmness of her still water-like heart. Ling Qingshu was somewhat baffled. The matter 5 years ago had undoubtedly messed up both of their original paths. She had once thought that given her character, she should be able to achieve the state her master had described to her, the state of having her heart as calm as a mirror and being completely untroubled. However, that preposterous incident had caused a tiny imperfection to appear on her bright mirror-like heart. Ling Qingshu had used 5 years to weaken and bury away that tiny imperfection. And just when she had thought that she was about to completely forget it, that somewhat fuzzy figure was accompanied by a storm as it staggered with exceptional perseverance and once again barged into her sights. The young man from back then had unknowingly already started chasing her footsteps. He had transformed tremendously during these 5 years. However, that exact same stubbornness from 5 years ago had not been erased with the flow of time. 5 years ago, a young man had once silently endured in a miserable manner before Lin Langtian. Now, he had become the most outstanding disciple amongst the younger generation of Dao sect. His achievements could even be considered top-notch amongst the younger generation of the entire Eastern Xian region. Such improvement and metamorphosis was something that even Ling Qingshu had difficulty ignoring at this moment. She was aware that it would perhaps no longer be easy for her to expel this person who had barged into her world again. Ling Qingshu's expression was somewhat complicated as she gently pursed her lips. After which, she heard the soft sounds of footsteps being transmitted from behind her. Her delicate body stiffened unnoticeably. The complicated expression in her eyes also quickly withdrew. Lin Dong walked over from behind. After which, he sat down beside Ling Qingshu. He tilted his head and watched the side of her enchantingly bewitching face. Suddenly, he smiled and said, "Do you still remember the words I spoke 5 years ago?" "I've forgotten." Ling Qingzhu lowered her long eyelashes and replied indifferently. I knew of the gap between you and me in the past. Therefore, I struggled with everything I had. After you left back then, I also left Yang City by myself. After which, I honed and trained myself in the outside world. At that time, I only had two aims. To kill Lin Langtian, and to stand before you again. The young man raised his head beside the pond and looked at the somewhat sinisterly black sky before laughing. I am not trying to boast to you. All that I wish to convey is that your judgment of me is ultimately wrong. I have achieved what you had deemed impossible. Ling Qingzhu's delicate finger skimmed over the long sword. Soon after, she turned her head and watched the brilliantly smiling young man. After a long silence, she finally spoke softly. You have struggled for 5 years because of those words? You should be aware that there were many times that you might have failed on that journey. There will be no chance for you to redo everything again should that happen. But I eventually succeeded. Lin Dong stretched his waist. He had roamed the great desolate province, charged out of the great Yang Empire and into the 100 Empire War. Finally, he had entered Eastern Xian region. There might be many dangers, but he had ultimately succeeded. Back then, I said that a woman I have slept with will definitely be mine. These words might appear a little vulgar now that I think about it, but... Lin Dong smiled. His eyes stared directly at Ling Qingzhu and said, You are my woman. Water splashed and the brilliant longsword was accompanied by a chilling aura as it pointed at Lin Dong's throat. Ling Qingzhu looked at him. Her voice was cold as she spoke. Do you truly think that I will not kill you? Lin Dong did not say anything. He stared at Ling Qingzhu. Those eyes were without fear. There was no trace of any intention to weaken his position. Ling Qingzhu gritted her teeth. Finally, she put away her long sword. She clenched her hand and said, It is best for you not to say such words. If these words reach my teacher's ears, she will kill you even if you are a Dao sect disciple. Lin Dong frowned. Every sect master of the 9 Heavens Supreme Purity Palace must train the Tao of their hearts. A heart must be as clear as a mirror, and not a single speck of dust will be tolerated. Given her character, if my master knew about us, she will definitely intervene and help me remove the imperfection in my heart. Ling Qingzhu watched Lin Dong and said, You are that speck of dust, the imperfection in my heart. Tao of the heart. It is heterodoxy. Lin Dong knitted his brows tightly. Immediately, he looked at Ling Qingzhu and said, In your opinion, how should this imperfection in your heart be removed? Ling Qingzhu was clearly startled by this question. Originally, she thought that there was no need to think about the answer. At this moment, however, she had difficulty speaking under Lin Dong's gaze. Hence, she could only shake her head while feeling lost as she replied, I do not know. I do not know if these words of yours are an attempt to get me to back off. However, my determination will never change. If your teacher wishes to stop me, I will wait until I am stronger than your teacher, before directly snatching you from the hands of the 9 Heavens Supreme Purity Palace. Lin Dong watched Ling Qingzhu, who had given the uncertain reply. A smile surfaced on his face as he grinned and declared. Ling Qingzhu felt neither able to laugh nor cry in the face of these words. She somewhat helplessly shook her head as she replied, Even the sect master of your Dao sect, Yin Xuanzi, has to be polite to my teacher when he sees her. You should stop setting random goals. Lin Dong smiled and he did not say anything more on this topic. It was similarly possible for him to feel the complicated emotions Ling Qingzhu had towards him. This was already pretty decent. At the very least, she did not possess that indifference and alienation that she used to treat other men when facing him. From a certain point of view, this was quite a good start. Thank you for what you did at the bottom of the pond earlier. Ling Qingzhu quietly sighed in relief when she saw the fearless Lin Dong had actually moderated himself. Soon after, she changed the topic and said, Why did you provoke that thing? Lin Dong frowned slightly. If Ling Qingzhu's intention was to heal herself, she could clearly do it at the middle of the pond. There was no need for her to intentionally head to the bottom of the pond. That skeleton should have some relations to my 9 Heavens Supreme Purity Palace. I received calls from it after entering the pond. However, I did not expect that it actually intended on snatching my life force. Ling Qingzhu bunched her eyebrows together as she explained. Relations? Lin Dong was startled. That skeleton's existence was clearly far older than the Nine Heavens Supreme Purity Palace. Therefore, it was likely that there was no direct relation between the two. From the looks of it, it was probably some relation in martial arts or secret arts. No wonder that spirit emblem entered your body. Ling Qingzhu nodded. She could sense the addition of the majestic spirit emblem within her body. This was considered a lucky opportunity for her. It seems like this Supreme Purity Celestial Pond will lose its powers in the future. Lin Dong gazed at the Supreme Purity Celestial Pond with some regret. The rainbow colors within it were gradually fading. The reason this Supreme Purity Celestial Pond had appeared in unique Devil region was clearly due to the protection of the ancient skeleton. Now that the skeleton had turned into dust, this place will likely once again be eroded by demonic chi in the future. Ling Qingzhu nodded. Soon after, she stood up and said, "Let's leave." She had already achieved her goal for this trip. Clearly, there was no point for them to remain in this place. Lin Dong smiled and nodded when he heard this. He waved his sleeve, before a black light shot out from the distance. Finally, it was kept in his Qianquan bag. It was the demon corpse that he had used to lure the monster snake away earlier. The two prepared to leave after the demon corpse was kept. However, Ling Qingzhu had just moved her body when she suddenly became startled. She beckoned with her hand, and a golden light shot out from the space in front of her. Finally, it entered her hand. "This is our Nine Heavens Supreme Purity Palace's Yuan spirit message." What happened? Ling Qingzhu received the golden light as her brows knitted slightly. Finally, her finger pressed on her smooth forehead. A change appeared on her face a moment later. What happened? Something happened to your people? Lin Dong asked in surprise when he saw this. No? Ling Qingzhu shook her head. Her clear eyes looked at Lin Dong. After a brief hesitation, she said, "It seems like Yuan Kang and the rest have attacked the Dao sect disciples. This video will end here.